Greetings and salutations. It is Dave Duford here at davidduford.com, where I help insurance agents like you close more final expense business. Of course, that is the purpose of today's broadcast. We're doing a hot seat live role play session with a group of my agents here on the call to help go over the closing script when it comes to selling and closing for final expense business. So let me describe to you how these role play trainings go. My goal for these is to have you test your knowledge, test your might, as I would say, to figure out how your script actually sounds in kind of an environment that you're thinking on your toes, right? You're kind of there. You don't have any preliminary preparation. You're going to be called on, but not so risky as being out in the middle of the field and not knowing what to do. So this environment is good to test your knowledge of the script and see if there's anything that needs to be improved, plus learning lessons of the basics of closing the business. So I really enjoy these trainings. They're very useful. They've helped out a lot of agents. So let's get started. So again, like what I like to do is randomly call on people, keep them on their feet to play prospect or to play agent in order to teach the concepts. I'm going to call on a few people here. You tell me if you want to do this. If not, you can just say no, and then I'll go to someone else. But please seriously consider. Hey, Phil, you want to do this? Have you ever been on one of these before?
I have not ever been on one. No, I don't. Are we in a sales call? What are we in?
Yeah. This is a conference call. We're doing kind of script role playing for the closing portion. So what I do to kind of teach the lessons of closing, we just pretend, right? We do a mock presentation and that part of the sales.
Well, if you don't mind, I haven't read your closing recently, so if you don't mind, let me listen for a little while, then I may jump in.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure, no problem, Phil. I see Mike said no. That's okay. All right. Roland, you want to do this? Are you there, Roland? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
All right,
can you hear me?
How you doing? Yeah, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, man. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start. I'm going to be prospect. You're going to be closer, all right? We're just going to run through a basic closing script. We might handle a few objections, and then I'll take time to kind of describe what's going on, what we can improve on, if anything, and just kind of go over that way. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, so picture that you're at the end of the sales call. You've showed, well, yeah, you're at the end of the sales call. What do you do when you're starting the process of showing the client the company and describing it? Why don't you just kind of pick up your script from there as best you can?
So I've already done the pre-qualifications. I've already done, I've already run the quotes and everything.
Correct. Yeah, definitely. So now you're like, it's ready to roll. Let's assume that we got her qualified and we know what we're going to do. So now it's like the presentation of here's what we got, here's how much it costs, and so on.
Okay, gotcha. All right, Mrs. Jones. Well, good luck. I actually have a program that I've been able to get you qualified for. The name of the company is Family Benefit Life. They're out of, I can't remember where they're at.
They're out of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tulsa, Oklahoma. Been around for a couple decades now, quite a few years. So, they're pretty well respected company. And in the budget that you gave me earlier, you said that your budget was between $50 and $70. So that would get you between. So I've written down three quotes here. One for 50, one for 60, one for 70.
Mm-hmm.
And that would give you 7,000, 8,000, or 9,000. Which one of these fits you the best?
Perfect. Okay. Off script here. Can we go back and fine tune a few things? Would that be okay?
Sure. Yeah,
right.
Sure.
So the good thing you did is you didn't go over the top about explaining the company. Okay. I think it's it's us as salespeople that sell the policy. The companies, while important, of course, don't matter nearly as much as we initially think. I think it's sufficient enough just to tell the name of the company, where they're located, and an approximate amount of years they've been in business. I do that. I've never had any pushback. I've had one, maybe two people out of 3,000 presentations ask me AM Best ratings. Nobody knows in this marketplace, at least, what that means. So some people,
I didn't know what that meant.
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like, who knows? Not even us. The good news is that they don't understand it. We don't have to explain it. And if you're selling something like family benefit, this is why I bring it up. They don't have an AM Best rating, so you got to be prepared to be okay with that. Nobody's really going to question it.
Gotcha.
So, okay, so we did that. Okay, so you picked. So here's my question to you.
Sure.
Why did you pick family benefit for the prospect?
It was just one of the first ones I could think of, and also it's one of the ones that I'm not contracted with Oxford, so it's one of the low price leader companies that I was thinking about.
Right. So, and that's fine. That's 100% fine. Communicate that to the client as much. So what I like to do is here's what I'm picking you, and here's why. That's essentially what I'm trying to do. We want to make them understand that there is a particular reason why we're selecting this product over something else, right? So perfect. I mean, hey,
can we script that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll play agent, you play prospect. So yeah, Mr. Jones, so let me tell you about the policy that I can qualify you for. The company is called Trinity Life Insurance. They're out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, off script, same company, different states. They've been in business for approximately 50 years. And the reason I'm selecting Trinity over all the other companies I have access to is because they have the most competitive price for people like you who have insulin that started after 40 and diabetic neuropathy. Bottom line, they're the best choice that we can find for you. Or they're one of the best choices if you want to be a little more specific.
Yeah.
Is there a better reason than another? No, but you want to, by providing a reason, you solidify a logical basis for buying, right? So
would it make sense to, when we're doing that portion, to bring up something that was on the qualification questions, just as a kind of a thing to say, even if another company can get the same thing, just to say it, just to kind of tie it down a little bit?
Yeah. So if I'm reading you right, so if you pre-qualified and the client has COPD,
right,
I would be like, hey, look, the reason I'm picking this company is because there are so few companies that will give first day full coverage if this was, say, Liberty Bankers Life.
Right.
For COPD. Most are going to make you wait 2 years or just flat out decline you. And that's true.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be, it is the lowest price. It's the best. You can connect it to, hey, these are people who are okay with your current condition. And that to me is powerful and encouraging urgency, because then we show them a level of value, right? And why picking from us is going to benefit them.
Understood.
Perfect. Okay. So you offered a $50, $60, $70. The numbers aren't so much of it as important as the fact that this is our good, better, best close. So if you've ever done any sales training, ever run any sales training books, you may have heard that there's dozens, hundreds of different closes.
Yeah, Ben Franklin and all kinds of different stuff.
Ben Franklin. None of that matters. The key is to get good at one thing, and one close is good enough. And so in the business model or the sales model I teach, it's the good, better, best. Of course, if you haven't gone through the training yet, earlier on in the sales call, we pre-qualified on budget. Mrs. Jones said, yes, I can afford 50 to 70. So this is
for sure.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. This is the reason why Roland said, you told me your budget's this. And so here's what we can do for you in those ranges. So we know that she can afford it. but we're giving, I say this is a controlled options, right? We're not forcing their hand, but we're saying, hey, here you go. Pick which one you want, because the implication is they already said they could afford it, right? So it helps further the sale when you offer those plans within the range. And I think your closing statement, and it's very simple to close these deals. Which one of these works best for you? And then shut up. So any questions, Roland? Anything you want me to go over in particular?
I did have a question about the training website. So in terms of the sales training that goes over this kind of stuff, is the most recent one you have the one that's on there? Because the one that's on there is a few years old. Is that the most recent version of that you have?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. I think I've given some thought to updating it, and I probably should. I've updated some. I haven't updated others. I know what you're talking about because it was filmed on a different size screen and it doesn't embed YouTube very well. So, yeah, I mean, it's like if anything, it's like 97% the same what I'm teaching.
Gotcha.
I'll go back and revisit it and make a note to update that just in case. Or for
just thinking of things that I should be like watching, like while I'm at work and trying to memorize and things like that. So that sales presentation is pretty much the same one I should be doing.
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha.
Yeah. What I teach, I've been teaching for 5+ years. I've done 7+ years, so it's basically little tiny scripting has changed. Like, for example, when I ask for the banking information, I say, look, the companies require a bank draft, or if you've got a direct express card, I don't need the money today, but which of those do you have so we can draft it? So I'm direct about it. Whereas I used to kind of dance around and say, oh, I can give you a discount if you bank locally or use a direct express card. And I could, if you looked at it compared to, let's say, the quarterly bill. So, but that doesn't mean that they'll let me, so that's a minor example of things I've changed.
Gotcha. Would you suggest for newer agents to kind of shy away from direct express if we can?
Yeah, I don't think it really. Write it if you run across it.
All right.
Business is business. That's the way I look at it. Some direct express is good and it sticks. Others is just garbage. It's hard to tell. Like I've got a guy I'm working with right now, Tyler. He's got a lady who has $240 a month taken out her direct express card for a Transamerica policy that he's trying to replace.
Wow.
So some people, are okay. I mean, I wouldn't skip that up. That's a pretty big commission. I guess that's my point,
Gotcha.
So
get it if you can, but
get it if you can. It's slow money, but it's money. Just make sure you're using carriers that have Social Security billing. So what that means is that, and I see your question about direct express. I'll get that in a second from the comments. Social Security billing is when you draft on the deposit date of the Social Security benefit. So if the client gets paid on the 3rd, but what if the 3rd falls on a Saturday or Sunday? Banks are closed. They don't deposit money over the weekend. So the government pays early. If we do a numerical traditional draft program, we cannot draft according to the rules before the date. So we have to draft after. So the client has a whole weekend to blow all their money on spending it on something else. So instead, using Social Security billing, we can hit that account on the same day they get their deposit. So it makes a big difference in persistency. It keeps a lot of business on the books a lot better. And Prosperity does it. AIG does not. Great Western does not. Security National does. Trinity Life does. And all of these I'm mentioning that do have direct express.
You said Trinity does do it?
Yeah, they've got a Social Security. It's on the direct express payment form. So it's kind of like you'll see where it says direct express or banking account. You can do either. And really, you should do it for any kind of billing. Time of billing makes a big difference in this business. It's just people forget they've got a draft coming out 1 month and, they'll just take out their money, and not really think about what if I got something else, or maybe they thought it went through already, So the shorter we can make the draft time happen, the better off we'll be.
Gotcha.
Cool. So Direct Express, for you guys brand new to this business, Direct Express is basically a checklist checking card. Okay. So it was designed and really rolled out maybe 6 or 7 years ago. It probably was around before then, but it corresponded with largely Social Security disability recipients who had to how can I say? They couldn't open bank accounts because they owed too much money to the bank and charge overcharges and all that stuff. But the government requires every Social Security benefit or recipient to get their money on some kind of account. There were problems 10 years ago, meth heads, stealing grandma's check, right? Because they know every day on the 3rd of the month, it's time to get the money. So the deposit system, I think, reduced costs and some of the issues inherent when you send money through the mail. So this is the preferred choice of people who can't get bank accounts. So there's implications. If you heard Roland, he's like, should I stay away? Should new agents stay away from Direct Express? Well, the reason why is because Direct Express has lower first-year persistency. What I mean by that is that statistically speaking, there's a higher chances of lapse with the Direct Express. And I think it's anecdotal, but I think it largely stems from the type of client that has a Direct Express card. A person who doesn't have a bank account, usually there's a reason why in 2020 they don't have a bank account. And it's because they used to, but couldn't manage cutting checks, writing, checks, managing their money. And so they've had to take away the check side of things so that prevents them from, screwing up their bank balance. So the Direct Express makes that a lot simpler. It's just that it's the nature of the prospect that buys it that makes it more difficult to keep on the books. So that's why Social Security billing, like I mentioned, is so important. Yeah, Roland, go ahead.
Yes. Quick question in relation to the scripting that we were just doing. So, during that part of the presentation, especially for us that are like brand new, even though we're using Best Plan Pro and everything, it may take 5+ minutes to go through the quotes and get rates and everything. What should we be doing because I've seen other guys say, "I'll give them this piece of paper to read" and all that kind of stuff, and you don't teach that. So I'm wondering, what do you teach us to do to prevent them from getting up and piddling around in the kitchen and losing focus?
Yeah. So, for me, my anxiety level was always higher during this qualification period, right? Because you're like, I got to make them wait. Here I am about to offer the money, or offer the close, right? Good, better, best. And I need to make sure that these people actually qualify. So for me, I always told them, I try to spin everything in a way that is going to put me in a better light. So I always tell clients, hey, look, it's going to take me a few minutes to compare and contrast the best options that are available to you. So if you don't mind giving me a few minutes so I can work hard to get you the best deal, that would be great. So that's good. That's what you want to tell them. And you would tell them before you presented the company, of course. So we're kind of right there at the end. So that gives you time to ask questions, make sure that it qualifies, and you're not going to lose. The client will appreciate that. Everybody, appreciates an agent or a sales rep that works hard, and you just need to tell them as much. That's what you're doing. That's why I'm going to be quiet here, because I want to do the best job for you. Does that make sense?
Right. So they're generally speaking, they have no problem just sitting there for 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah. I've sat there 5-10 minutes and they're just chilling out and taking it easy. And I'll say occasionally, okay, I think I'm about done. Just one more thing I'm gonna look at, so I kind of engage a little bit, but most of them are all right. And again, they appreciate that. Okay. Look at that time, that 5 to 10 minute period, which is going to be normal if you're new. Look at that as you providing extra value to your client to ensure you're giving the best offer that you have.
Gotcha.
All right. Question from the audience. If someone objects and states that $50 a month is $600 a year, for 7,000 worth of coverage. What is your comeback? All right, let's drill that objection. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I'm going to call on somebody else here. Hey, Donald, you want to do this objection with me?
Actually, I'm kind of right in the middle of something with the truck that I run right now.
No problem.
If you got somebody else, if you need me on it, then I'll go. But if you got somebody else that can do it,
I'll find somebody else. No problem.
okay.
All right. Hey, Tina, you want to do this?
I think so.
Okay,
I think
good.
I can do it. I can always make a fool of myself, right?
That's right. Better now than later. Okay. So you go ahead and just basically start with by saying, here's the $50, $60, $70 a month. Just pick up a roll and said, which one you want to go with.
If I get a little background here before we jump in, it sounds like this is like it's a guarantee. It's expensive because they're guaranteed issue, because that does sound like a lot for such a little amount.
Yeah. So
that they don't qualify for anything else, and they're not even going to be covered for the first 2 years on this plan. Is that right?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You can have people who are perfectly healthy qualifying for something at that, because they're old. They're 85 and they're paying $150 a month for 5,000. Are like, well, wait a minute. If I do the math here, I'd pay it up in 3 or 4 years. So that's where I want you to be the agent, and then I'll kind of give you some resistance, and then we'll kind of cover how that manage.
Okay, so what's the situation? Is it because they're old, or what is?
It matters less about the situation that they're in, if they're guaranteed issue or if they're level.
That's the reason they're paying so much, right?
No, well, that's what I mean is that it's a value proposition, meaning their gut instinct is, boy, that's not a lot of coverage for the value of the money I'm putting in. Why would I do that? Why don't I just save for it instead? So what we want to do is give them a reason why it's a good idea anyway when it comes to a perceived lack of value. Does that make sense? So it doesn't matter how much coverage.
It doesn't matter, because like the older they are, the more likely they are to die.
That's right.
That certainly matters, right?
Say that.
Whereas if they're my age, that's ridiculous. They shouldn't have to pay that much. I'm 58 and a half.
Possibly, and so this is where we'll go. So you play agent, make me the offer, and then we'll see kind of how we handle it.
Okay, so the best I did searched all the companies, and the coverage I could get you was $7,000, and that's going to be $50 a month. How's that sound?
Boy, I tell you what, $70 a month for $7,000 in coverage, that just seems like it's pretty high, Tina.
Wait, who's the
like,
agent?
yes, I know.
I thought I was the prospect. You were going to be the agent.
I can do that too. You want to do that? So hear how it sounds? Okay.
Let's do it.
So Mrs. Miller, the program I can qualify. What'd you say?
Ms.
Miller.
Right. Gloria Steinem.
$50, $60, $70 a month. And I can, 50, 7,000, 60s, 8,000, 70s, 9,000. Which one of these works best for you?
So it's $50 a month for $7,000 worth of coverage.
Yes.
Well, why wouldn't I just put it in a bank account? I think I'd be better off.
That's a great question.
Put in less, and or I could put in more, and I'd have all that flexibility.
Sure, absolutely. So here's the deal. It's a great point. A lot of people I talk to, they know how important it is to cover their final expenses, but when they see a price that may not be what they expected, they wonder why just not put it in the bank, get interest, and so on. So here's the thing. The one thing that the bank will never be able to do is ensure that the amount of coverage you need is there whenever you die, okay? Sure, you could pay in $70 a month or whatever, $50 a month for 20 years and have more cover or more in the bank than you would in the life insurance policy. But I can't tell you, and nor can you tell me when you're going to pass away. It is not for us to know.
I'm only 58 and I don't have any life-threatening illnesses.
I totally get it. I totally understand. But you've probably known people who suddenly got cancer or suddenly had a stroke.
I don't think it's going to happen.
It may not, but why take the chance when you don't have to?
Because that's expensive. That's a lot to pay. I don't have much money left over when my check is done. I can barely afford anything.
So
This
what
is
happens?
luxury. This is starting to look like a luxury rather than a necessity.
Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So what happens if you don't do anything today and tomorrow you get hit by a bus? Do you have the money to pay for your final expenses?
No.
Right. So here's my point. You not paying the premium doesn't solve the problem, right?
That's true.
Paying the premium.
But there is no problem because I'm not going to get hit by a bus tomorrow. I guarantee I'm going to call you up, say, hey, Dave, I'm still here. Sorry. And I'm going to prove it to you.
Not tomorrow, maybe not next month, next year, but you will die one day, right?
Well, you
We don't
too.
know.
We have that in common.
Yeah, but still, you know, what this policy comes down to is an understanding that life is mortal by design and that there is a guarantee that A, we're going to die, and that B, there's going to be a cost to it. So,
Right.
so by
I think I'm
skipping,
better off with a bank account at that rate.
Okay.
I think I'd rather take the gamble. I think I'm better off just putting it away. $50 a month, even if I just do it for a year, that's, you know, just a couple of years and I've got the same amount, right? I mean, I can't do the math in my head, but.
if you can't do the math in your head, then why are you doing it?
Well, I can do it for 1 year. Well, no, not even that. Well, anyway, I can see it that I can estimate that it's going to be, I can get it, the money in just a few years, and I'm going to be here in a few years.
Yeah, so off script here, I appreciate you playing along, Tina, because the covered a bunch of interesting ways to rebuttal this stuff. I tried, I think, 3, 4, maybe 5 times in different ways to walk down or walk you back off the plank of jumping into this idea in your head of going to a bank. And you should exhaust that many times, because what you're trying to discover is if conceptually the client is sold on why he or she should get coverage. I would argue at the conclusion of this, so go back and watch the recording of this, and we'll go over some of the objection rebuttals I use because I think they're very useful. I believe at the end of this, conceptually, this client doesn't get it. As we say down, no offense, Tina, I know you're playing along, but we say in the South, you can't fix stupid. All right, so if
Who's
somebody,
the one that's stupid?
huh?
I said, who's the one that's stupid? Sorry, I had to say that.
So if you can't convince them of the realities of life, that death will happen, that there is a cost, and that by not paying the premium, you are avoiding what will guaranteed to be happen. If you can't convince them and you've told them as much, at least you gave it a shot. You've exhausted all your salvos and there's nothing much else you can do. The only other thing I could suggest possibly doing is saying, hey, are you saying to me that $50 a month is too expensive? Can you actually afford that? Or are you saying that, you know, you just don't see the value? Because we can go lower than $50 a month. We could do 30 or 40 and maybe kind of feel out if it's a price objection. Usually it's not, though. It's a conceptual, let me do the math here on my calculator, you know, it's too much. So a couple of ways to handle this if you hear it. Number one, you have to go back to the underpinning of why people buy life insurance. Why do people buy life insurance? It's because they love somebody. Tina, I'm going to put you on mute, but you can jump back on if you want to. They love somebody, right? And they also recognize on some level that there is no certainty as to what tomorrow brings. This is a conceptual decision that not everybody goes through. So you want to go back to that to test that that belief, right? And to remind them of that belief, if in this case was they were trying to, just make a complaint about the price, but they didn't really think about the nature of life. So what do I mean by that? So when somebody says, yeah, 70, that's a lot of money a month, and I have to just put that in the bank. And I tell them this is the script they use. That's 100% true. You can definitely put it in the bank account. And after a number of years, you may actually have more money in the bank account. But here's my question to you, Mrs. Prospect. Think about this. Can you guarantee that you're going to die when you think? And then just shut up and let them think and listen. And if they're honest people, they'll say, "No, I don't really know." And then your answer is, that's exactly why I'm here talking to you today, is because we don't know what tomorrow brings. I may walk out the door and get run over by a bus. You may have a sudden stroke. You may be perfectly healthy and live till you're 100. Why would you take a chance, though, when it comes to something is going to be, at the end of the day, a reality 100%, that you will die and you will have to pay this, and you don't have the money today to do it, and nor do you want your children to do it. So let's get one of these plans. If the $50 a month is affordable for you, let's get started there. At least you've got some coverage. If that doesn't work, then why don't you back down and get maybe a smaller one? What do you think? So the key thing here is as you hear these objection rebuttals, you'll notice I'm not scripted from a canned perspective, right? So what you want to take away from this is the concept of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so in this case, we're trying to bring people back to the emotion, right? They're getting grounded into the logic of this is just too expensive, or it's not a good value. But you have to bring them back to the emotion of, but by not doing anything, you're not solving your problem. Okay. Okay. Any questions? Feel free to pop up. Yeah, Roland.
So at what point do we determine that they are unqualified in terms of want and need? Because so I ran some appointments last year, and so it was essentially a one-legger, because the husband was there and he said, I don't care, my kids will have to figure it out, I don't even want to listen to this. So I presented to the woman, and of course I shouldn't have done that, but the husband essentially said, I don't care, they can bury me in the backyard, I don't care. And he would refuse to sit down and listen. So at what point do we say they're unqualified to our criteria on?
Right there. If you don't have it, a qualified prospect by definition is someone who is engaged and receptive and open-minded. It doesn't mean that they're going to buy, but they're a part of. They want to be a part of the process on some level. If you have a guy that conceptually does not agree with the nature of what our proposition is, which is buy this life insurance plan to pay for your final expenses, you can't do anything with a guy like that.
So even if the wife is totally receptive, still don't present to her at all. Just say,
no, so this is a little different. It sounds like you came in and both are there, and he's like, hell no, I don't want this.
Yeah, he was watching TV, and that's it. And so he just came in the kitchen one time when we were doing the thing, and he said, yeah, there's no point in talking to me about it because I don't care. I'm just going to watch it.
That's different. I would pitch that to the lady 100%.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah.
So that's not considered a one leg at that point?
I mean, yeah, kind of, but this is different in the sense that he's there. He's not being involved. He's telling you he's just willingly pulling out of it. And if you go ahead and present to the person who wants it, then if she's like, well, let me talk to my husband, they're like, great, call him back in here. Let's talk. At least you can go somewhere with it. So that's different than if you show up and the husband's working, right? And he's not around. There's no way that you can overcome the objection. Let me talk to my husband now. You have to wait and means another call. This is one of those things where you can kind of go both ways, but in your situation, but I would do it. I would definitely do it. She's probably also used to his hard-headedness, I would say instinctively. He probably is just like that. and she has to make all the tough decisions. I mean, that's
Gotcha.
the dynamics of some marriages.
Yeah, gotcha.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Any questions so far, anybody? Anybody want me to clarify anything on the money question? The key thing is just bringing it back to the emotion, and then reminding them by avoiding paying the premium, you're not avoiding the problem, you're making it worse, really. Okay, a couple questions here. I'm behind a little. Owner says, would you offer ways they could save money to recover their money, such as getting auto or home quotes? I mean, yes, you could do it, but the reality is most of us don't have access to auto or home insurance. I mean, it can be done, but most of us just carry final expense. Few of us, maybe some Medicare plans. So what you're describing is the found money concept. It works really well when people are conceptually interested, but they just are worried about the money. You know, if you sell a key man policy to a business owner, and they're worried about the premium, but maybe you can show ways that you can make it more realistic. I don't know. I don't really know that market well, but that's the found money concept. So it's a good thing, but it's unlikely that we'll use it. If you do it, go for it. You can definitely create more opportunity if you can say, hey, if you know you need this and you don't want to pay this, here, I sold you auto insurance. It's $50 less a month. So let's use the difference for what you know you need. Okay, Donald. Hey, sorry about that, guys. No problem. I'm back now. Don't you make about 8% interest on guaranteed issue? Yeah. So this is one thing you can tell. But to me, this objection's not about it's about the value. And by putting your money in the bank account or putting your money into an insurance policy, the question of value still remains. Is this a good deal if I live a long time? So and this would be if it was guaranteed issue. That's kind of a different objection rebuttal that we could probably cover actually today. But you want to challenge the belief system of the prospect. That's what's most important here. And have them see your side of the story and try to win them over as much as possible. Owner says, what if they say they are interested, but they want someone to look at it? Okay, let's cover that since you brought it up. So this would be, yeah, I want to buy this, but let me talk to my daughter, right? Okay. So let's get a willing contestant to deal with this. Frustrating. Objection. William, you there? William, St. Louis.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hey, what's
all
up?
Right.
You ready to play hot seat with me?
Yeah, I'll play.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to be prospect, your agent. You close me, and then I'm going to tell you I need to talk to my daughter or something, and then let's see how you handle it. Okay.
All right, Dave. So here are the prices, and which one of these works best for you?
Well, this $100 a month deal seems pretty fair, but in our family, we always talk to our kids before we make a decision. Why don't you just leave this information with me, and then I'll get back to you.
Dave, I appreciate the fact that you want to think this over. I think that's a wise thing to do. Unfortunately, you see this stack? I have a lot of people to try to get to today. So in the next few weeks to come. Dave, what I've found is our kids really don't want to talk to us about dying and things like that. I mean, they may do it on a little level, but let me ask you, how do you feel? I mean, do you feel like you would talk to your daughter, let's pretend you do, and you would say to her, daughter, do you think it's a good idea that I should have this $10,000 protection on myself? Or would you just pay this for me when I pass away? What do you think she would say?
She ain't got no money. She couldn't drop 10 grand. No way.
Okay, so really the answer is obvious, right? That she probably would, but I still agree that you should talk to her, but this is the way I would talk to her. You see, I'm here today just to get you qualified, okay? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get you qualified, and let's actually send off and see will the insurance company accept you. And if they accept you, then they'll deliver you with a contract, and that way you can get to your daughter with the contract in hand, and now you can actually tell her exactly what you're working with. Does that work better for you?
Well, yes.
Okay, so your daughter's going to be your beneficiary, right?
There you go. Right. There you go. Good. Okay. So off script here, let's cover this a little bit. I'll give you a critique, William. You mentioned I call it the ultimatum close. You know, here's my stack. See all these people. I got to go see them. I can't ever come back. I think that was out of place where you said it. Okay. So if you go watch the recording of this, you'll see you kind of said it, but it really had no basis for being there. You could have easily just removed that and said, here's what I found, you know, and then you went on with whatever you said. You want to use that script if they object again and say, hey, look, you know, this is pretty simple. It either makes sense for you or not. We can get you approved. Don't have to take money today. You can at least talk to your daughter after you know you've been approved and then decide. But I'm busy. Look, I cannot come back. I have so many people to see. So do you want to do this or not? That's when I would do it. When all else has failed, just draw the line in the sand. But that kind of was out of place. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I mean, you said directly to me that you asked me, could I come back? And I had to, why would I answer that? If you asked me, hey, can I come back?
Sure. Okay. Okay. That's okay. I can see where you're justified that. So, okay. So I'll give you that. That's fine. Let's see. So the thing that you did right is you just ask outright, is this something your daughter would want? You know, so again, conceptually, do you want to be protected? Is at a bare minimum, forget about the price, forget about the coverage. Let's assume we got enough to cover what you want. Is this something you want? Yeah. Okay. Then, you know, what's the holdup? Is it you need to talk about the premium? Do you need to talk about the coverage? Like so you want to clarify. Sometimes if this isn't a blatant lie and they're just trying to get you rid of you, this is a initial objection to another objection. And usually it's price or it's a value proposition difference. So maybe they're thinking, you know, that $70 a month deal looks good. I like it, but you let me talk to my daughter, but they don't tell you that, hey, I'm thinking about having her pay for it because I don't have the money, but I need to check with her first. So you have to kind of work through some of this, like, hey, you know, that's fine. Maybe, so are you at least sold on needing this? Is this something that's important to you? Because if you can get that far, then what you did next was exceptional. I don't know how you'd call this. This is like, I mean, you closed it, right? You know, you're in so many words, you said, I don't even know if you can qualify. You know, why don't you go talk to your daughter after you know what you can get? Is that about what, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a little bit of a takeaway, because what are you going to talk to her about? You can go talk to her about everything we've talked about today, and I can't produce it. Let's find out if I can get this for you.
What that objection does really well is it's a litmus test to the sincerity of the objection. What I mean by that is that if you say that, it's completely true. Look, there's been all sorts of people I thought I could qualify. I had one on Friday. Dude takes Alzheimer's medications. He didn't tell us. He forgot. So, you know, so I don't know. I can't promise I'm going to be able to get you coverage. So a reasonable person that really is interested in this product, wouldn't they just be willing to agree to that if their interest level was actually high and they actually believed in it? It's a reasonable statement to make and a reasonable request. So what's nice about that rebuttal is that if they're still giving you slack, where you're like, look, let's just get you approved. Let's see what happens after that. Then we can decide. Then you guys are happy to decide. If I don't hear from you, it'll just go through, but at least you know everything's good. If they still say no to that, there's still something going on that they're not being forthright about. This is where it gets challenging. It's like, are they being honest? Is there some other problem? Do they not trust us? You know, that's when I like to use the ultimatum close, where hands are in the air and I'm like, look, you know, if you need to think about this, you told me as much that you need this. You said this is affordable for you. Well, I'm not making stuff up here. You know, you told me as much. And I can't come back after today, because everybody who says they need to talk to their daughter, guess how many actually do it? 0. What they're trying to tell me is, hey, I'm not really interested, but I'm trying to be nice. Is that you? Or is this something you're actually interested in? So that's kind of a more high stress close, or a high, I would say high pressure, but it is you apply more tension to the client. But what do you have to lose at that point? Exactly. To me, you're making it clear it's now or never. My proposition is fair. I can take the app, get you approved, and you can go talk to your daughter afterwards. If they still don't agree with that, then
it's something else. I
get the hell out of there. You know, at that point, I'm done fooling with these fools. You know, it's like, if I've gotten this far and they say they're interested, but now they're they're backtracking it, and they're not being honest with me, is what my realization has been in this business. So I'm like, okay, bye. Going to the next one.
And David, do you think it's appropriate? Like, they'll say, well, can you just call us back, you know, or whatever? And I don't do that anymore. I used to, I never did really just call them back. But what I do now is I tell you what, you know, like I said, I have so many people to see. Here, take my card. If you think about it, you can call me. Because I know they're not going to call me anyway. I read somewhere that I shouldn't say that, because I did say it. I used to tell them that. And look, you know how many people call me back? You know, like 1%. But I don't say that anymore. I'm not negative. I say something like, you know, I'm 100% sure from what we've talked about that this is for you. So I'm giving you this card thinking that, you know, most people in your situation would call me back. I try to leave on a more positive note, even though I don't believe that. That's what I do.
Yeah, the thing that will happen is that as you do this process and you run a ton of appointments, you become a lot more brash with your rebuttals. Because if you're in a position where you're running 20, 25 appointments a week and you've got more leads than time to see them, I have found my objections just cut to the bone a lot faster, because I'm not coming back. I really mean it, you know, when I'm running a full system like that. And we're not talking rocket science here either, guys. Like, but when you say, just check this out, or let's get you approved first, and then you can make a decision, that is not an unreasonable expectation. You freaking drove to their home, dude. You rolled up in there from somewhere else, spent your gas money. Of course you can ask them for the business today. And you're not even asking for the money. And so I say all this because if you think, the more you listen to this, the more I want you to think how unreasonable it is to have somebody who says they're interested, but then they say they're not, when you bring all this stuff up and realize the client's probably lying about what's going on. And it's going to be hard to get them to be honest with you if they've gone so far into this level of deceit.
Dave, can I ask you a question about one I had last night? It's still on the close, but I've had several situations where there's a guy that stands behind me. I'm gonna just talk about yesterday, so I won't get confused. Okay, this guy was standing behind me. I'm presenting to them, right? But I could tell after a while this guy's giving them signals, especially when I get to the close part. They've been on board. Yeah, exactly. What do you do with that guy? I told him, hey, look, man, if you're gonna be, if you're gonna be in the appointment, come around front and and face me and let's talk about it. What's the issue? And I mean, I really called him out.
I joke about, I mean, for me, so my style when I'm in presentations is like, the switch I put on is like, I'm Mr. Happy, I'm here joking, having a good time, relaxed. And, I may look around and I may be like, are you telling her not to buy or something?
Yeah.
Just address it in a funny way and let them laugh a little bit and be like, hey man, you can sit down and if this doesn't make sense, you can tell me, no, it ain't gonna hurt my feelings. Or you can just look around and say, oh, I didn't know you're behind me. Let me sit over here so I can talk to you too. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
maybe you just move yourself if you can. Of course, situations that dictate tactics. There may not be another seat to sit in, but you want to try to move over if you can.
Okay, so I'm rebutting the first 2 objections or so, and he steps in. Now he hadn't said anything for 45 minutes during the whole presentation. All of a sudden, he starts saying, this is the part I don't like, where you're coming in with high pressure. I said, high pressure? And then I went on to tell him, hey, I'm trying to help. Man, I'm dealing with a guy that had 7 strokes in the last 2 years. He had stents, heart surgery. This guy's ready to check out, 62 years old. His wife was fine, but I'm down to a $50 budget for both of them. I had him lined up for $36 AIG, $5,000, and her with $5,000, just with another carrier. But anyway, with a regular carrier. And this guy's telling you high pressure. And the question came up about, hey, how much money you're going to make on this too? Oh man, I had to answer that. And I did it like you. I do copy your style. Happy-go-lucky. No, man, I had to leave. I was starting to stand up when that guy came around and started interjecting. Every time I did a close, they didn't even answer anymore. Here, this guy hasn't.
So, real quick, I'm going to answer this, and I've got Donald who wants a couple of questions and someone else. So, here's my response to it. First of all, I'm not saying you did, but just as rules of thumb we should all follow. Don't take offense to anybody doing that stuff. Okay, there's probably a good reason why they're giving signals in the back, and saying comments like, "What do you make on this?" or "Why are you applying pressure?" The second thing is, if you ever hear any kind of objections, is appeal to the greater good. Okay. You have to believe that you're coming into the home to help people at all times throughout the entirety of the process. And when somebody accuses you of pressure, you need to change that objection to think about the nature of what we're talking about. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Tina earlier. Talking about, oh, it's 50, it's too much, there's not enough value, I could save it in the bank instead. You have to go back to the nature of why we're doing, hey, look, I apologize if I'm pressuring you, but here's my intentions. My intentions are for you to understand your life isn't guaranteed. You don't know what's going to happen. Dude, you had 7 strokes. I don't mean to, be blunt with you, but you know how fast it can happen where you get affected. I'm on your side. And my job is just to try to convince you to understand that waiting doesn't solve this problem. Waiting accelerates and worsens the problem. So here's the thing. With all that said, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I care about you. I don't want you to die and not have coverage because I didn't try my best to get it, to earn it from you. So which one of these makes sense? Something like that. Okay. So, Donald, real quick, go ahead and pop in here and you can ask your questions.
Hey, Dave. Do you hear me?
Yep, go for it.
Hey, just real quick, your medical sheet that's on your FAAM that we use to qualify prospects, we're asking them if they currently have those medical problems, but we're also needing to ask, have they had them within the year or 2 years, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then one other one, how do the TM leads, how do they work exactly? I know we send that sheet back to you, but we get them, like somebody's making a cold call to them and they're saying yes, or what kind of lead is it, I guess is what I'm really asking.
Just a cold call, telemarketed lead to a typical final expense, age, and income filter. And I don't know exactly what the script says, but it talks about state regulated life insurance, essentially. It's very much like what the cards say. And they agree to us calling them back And then we also, I think we collect a favorite color or a favorite hobby, one or the other. And so when you call them back, you just say, hey, this is Dave Duford. We called you a couple days ago about our final expense program. You said your favorite hobby is fishing. And then go into your typical appointment setting script.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, you got it. All right. I'm going to address this last question here from the audience. And if you guys got any questions, go ahead and type them in. Now's the time. We're about to wrap this up. Okay. Owner says the customer has a 30-day free look on most policies. So that can be used, correct? Are all policies mailed to the customer after approval? So yes, they are mailed to the customer after approval. Now, this is a criticism or a critique on how you close. To me, the weakest close is you're not obligated for anything for 30 days. Why? Because it's saying that people who are wishy-washy can get out, okay? When the reality of an insurance plan is they've got to keep it until they die, and it can be many years later before that happens. So I prefer, first of all, rebuttaling like I've talked about earlier, talking about the nature of life, the nature of death, its uncertainty, and how avoiding this doesn't solve the problem, it worsens it. I prefer to focus on that more than the 30-day free look. Now, if all else has failed, what do you got to lose? This is one of those that down the line, sure, give it a shot. Maybe it makes all the difference. But it's not a first opening salvo because what I want to challenge is the possibility that this prospect isn't on board fully with the idea of insurance. They believe there's alternatives that are better. And so I want to overcome those objections, right? Because if they think a bank account is a better vehicle to pay for final expenses, I don't think that's the case. And they need to seriously consider why, and here's the reasons why. Not because of a 30-day wait. Does that make sense? So, all right. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end this. We're right at the hour mark. Hope you got some value out of this. Thanks for everybody that contributed. And we shall see you next week with more of the same. Y'all take care. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.